Will everyone please join me in Gassho and read the Nembutsu with me? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Today we are commemorating a very important holiday where we recognize the passing of the historical Buddha Shakyamuni. And this is a time when the Buddha passed into what we call Nirvana. Dharma school students, I want you to say that with me. Nirvana. Nirvana. Very good. This is the ultimate form of enlightenment because it goes beyond our physical body. So the Buddha said to his followers, that even though I am no longer physically here with you, my teachings will always remain. Even though I can't physically talk to you anymore, remember the lessons that I taught you in life. Now, this is true, I think, with many, many different teachers in our lives as well. Important historical figures like Dr. Martin Luther King. We remember their words and their teachings even after they have passed away. The Buddha also said, not to rely upon him as sort of like a god, right? Where, he's the center of worship in a sense, but to basically follow the teachings that he prescribed to all of us. Now, one of the most important teachings of the Buddha to give all of us is the teaching of impermanence. I know I say that a lot, and possibly a lot of you are getting tired of hearing that word, but it is very true, because we as human beings often have a hard time with impermanence, which brings us to the next topic of today, our pet memorial service. All of you can see the pictures that were submitted of our beautiful pets who had to depart before us over what they call the Rainbow Bridge. Our pets, I think, are some of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves in this life. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you currently have a pet right now? Okay, good. How many of you have a dog? How many of you have a cat? Okay, sorry, that was incorrect. I shouldn't have raised my hand when I said dog. I don't have a dog. But how many of you have both? Okay, how many of you have a pet that's kind of, that's not the typical cat or dog, but like a rabbit or a bird or a fish? Anything like that? Okay, very nice. Any reptiles? Any lizard? Ooh, we got some reptiles over there. Nice, nice. I don't think I could. I would get scared if their terrarium was empty. Ooh. but our pets are some of the most beautiful presents that we are, and beings, I think, who can enter our lives. Now, I often don't disagree with, scripture in terms of the Buddhist teaching, but one of the things that I have trouble settling with is that animals are considered to be on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of the 6 realms of existence of samsara. Us humans are above them, and then we have the animals, right? We have the animals. And this is because animals mostly live on instinct. But that being said, I argue that animals actually have a greater tune to our nature and to our being more so than human beings do. And this is because we as human beings have ego. Well, I mean, animals do too, but we have this strong sense of pride, ego, and conceitedness sometimes where we get locked up in ourselves. And it's hard for us to relate to others. Haven't you noticed that when you go home, animals or your pet, your dog, your cat kind of knows when there's something wrong, and they know when you're sad, they know when you're angry, and they know when you need comforting. But the animals and the pets that we hold dear to us, are some of our greatest Buddhist teachers because they can teach us this type of closeness, this type of empathy. But the other thing, they teach us. They help us actually exercise the Buddhist virtues of the 6 paramitas. When you think about that, owing to the fact that the talks that I've been giving center around the six paramitas, like dana, which is selfless giving. The pet, our pets give us selfless love. They greet us every time because they're so happy that we're home. Then there's sila, virtue. Yes, our pets, I think, will, teach us about setting boundaries when they don't like something. But then, of course, there's shanti, patience. All of us, who are, who I was a younger kid too. I liked to sometimes torment my cat by chasing after the cat because I wanted to pick him up, and he was like, no. But patience. Our pets actually exude a great amount of patience for us, especially in our times that we are not so 100%. And then, they teach us to exercise these elements for them as well. We have to give selflessly to our pets. Why? Because when you think about our pets, they can't give us money, right? They can't give us material wealth. They can't give that type of exchange. We have to, sila, right? We have to do our utmost best to take care of our pets, to not cause harm, to take them to the vet, to feed them, right? Shanti, patience. We have to be patient with our pets. Sometimes our pets will do things that, we don't like. They'll, yes, I have a cat, and there have been more than enough mornings where I've woken up and I've gone out to the living room and there's, forgive me, but there's puke on the, on the carpet, or there's a hairball, right? And do I get mad about this? No. Sometimes I might go, oh, not again, but if you're going to get upset about those kinds of things, you probably shouldn't get a pet, right? Dogs, right? I'm certain all of you who are dog people, you have to take them out. You have to take them out for walks. You can't just let them sit in the house all day. You have to and you have to clean up after them when you take them for a walk too, right? So these are Buddhist lessons that our pets teach us. These are the virtues that our pets help us exercise. But what we are commemorating today, they teach us the lesson of impermanence in the hardest way possible. I sometimes think that, when a person loses a pet to a pet passing away, it can be just as painful as losing a family member. And this is because our pets are definitely part of our family, and there's been a bond and an attachment. And believe it or not, even though we are Buddhist, this is not a bad thing. So again, lots of people sometimes think that we as Buddhists have to just accept everything as it is and push our feelings aside and push our feelings down. Absolutely not. This is not the case. When we lose a pet, we should ultimately allow ourselves to feel that sadness. We should allow ourselves to cry. We allow ourselves to grieve. We allow ourselves to mourn. This is healthy and important. Pets teach us the most important lesson of impermanence in this lifetime, because most of the time our pets do not outlive us. When a pet passes away, it is common to feel very upset and to shut in. But when we think about the lessons that our pets teach us in life, they don't teach us to shut ourselves in and to, close ourselves off from the world. The pets teach us how to embrace one another with selfless love. This is why this service means a lot to me in particular. In life, I have gone through many cats. My mother is a crazy cat woman. And in fact, the new house that my parents moved to in Oakland came with two outdoor cats. So she, of course, adopted them. And she was able to bring two of our cats from the previous house in Sacramento along with her. And sadly, both of those cats who came from the Sacramento house passed away last year. And every time it was, I feel this real sadness within me when that does happen. And my brother doesn't make it any easier because he makes these really cute and beautiful tribute videos to the pets as well. My brother likes to do video editing, and so he makes these collage videos of the pets. So it's even harder to, see that. But even though I feel this, I am also internally grateful for the pet's presence. Because, again, a pet, I think, can give us a type of love that's often hard for humans to give to one another. Of course, this is not saying that a parent's love for their child is not as strong. Not saying that at all. But when we think about our relationships with humans or with human to human, it can often sometimes be, very cautious, right? Whereas many times once you create that bond with a pet, it lasts for as long as they live. And in this lesson, the Buddha teaches us about the feeling of caring for one another, of interdependence. I think that this service really does a good job of reminding us not only to give extra love and care for our pets, but to really understand the reason why we adopt them in the first place, right? Why we have them, why they are important to our lives. Sometimes they might do annoying things. Yes, I get annoyed at my cat all the time because he likes to bat at my feet every time I walk to the kitchen because he's nagging me for food. But I still wouldn't trade my cat Irvin for anything in the world. I love Irvin, faults and all, as all of you love your pets, faults and all. So, and I am not even strong enough where I want to think about the time that Irvin will inevitably leave us over the Rainbow Bridge. But in this regard, we do know that our pets give us some of the greatest love in this lifetime, and we should always cherish and remember that. Please, when you go home to your pets, give your pet an extra pet, some extra love, maybe, and if you are a child in the family, take the responsibility of feeding the pet or cleaning up the litter box, etc. Show this love to your pet, because this type of love is easily able to be transformed into the love and care of other people as well. Thank you all so much for listening to our Nirvana Day, Pet Memorial Day service. Go home and love your pets. Thank you all so much, and join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thus, these passages give clear testimony that the larger sutra reveals the true teaching. It is indeed the right exposition for which the Tathagata appeared in the world, the wondrous scripture rare and most excellent, the conclusive and ultimate exposition of the one vehicle, the precious words disclosing perfect, instantaneous fulfillment, the sincere words praised by all the Buddhas throughout the 10 quarters, the true teaching in consummate readiness for the beings of this day. Let this be known. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. To give clarification, the passage that I read today comes from Shinran Shonin's Kyogyo Shinsho, or his whole textbook or teaching of the true practice, teaching, practice, and fulfillment. Okay, so this comes from Shinran Shonin's defense, or his dissertation of the Pure Land Way. But on Nirvana Day, for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, it's important for us to remember, which of the Buddhist teachings we follow, right? Which of the Buddhist teachings we subscribe to. This isn't to say that we're right and that other Buddhist schools are wrong. Of course, other Buddhist schools are great, and for lots of people, right, the various teachings work. Particularly for many, they love the teaching of Zazen sitting. For others, they need the Tibetan tantric method where they recite mantras over and over again, right? And again, this is not to put down any of those other teachings. Those teachings are wonderful. And I personally am a fan of the esoteric teachings of Tendai Buddhism, even though I don't necessarily follow them. But they are very fun to learn about. But for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, I think one of the main reasons why so many people were attracted to Jodo Shinshu early on in the days of Japan was because of its simplicity. When the Buddha passed away, the Buddha once again said, don't rely on my body, right? Don't rely on my physical being, because this physical being is not going to be here forever, right? And on that day that the Buddha passed away, same message, right? It's the same message of, I am leaving this world. I am leaving the physical form. So you must rely on the teachings that I have imparted upon you in order to continue this journey, right? So what's interesting about Buddhism in general, I think, is that our religious figurehead, the historical Shakyamuni Buddha, never gave any illusions that he physically or his physical form was going to live forever. I sometimes get a little worried when I see that there are these religious movements where the leader kind of claims that they're going to be able to live forever, or that, I'm actually over like 300 years old or something like that. But the Buddha never made that claim. Right? The Buddha, was very much aware of his mortality, his humanness, or at least being, trapped or at least being in the physical form that he was. But for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, the teaching that we cling to or that we subscribe to is the Nembutsu teaching. And that, of course, is why we always put our hands together and say, Namo Amida Butsu. And for a lot of people, that's kind of difficult, right? Isn't it funny? Sometimes the easiest practice or the most simplest teaching can raise a lot of questions. And even during Shinran Shonin's time, there were a lot of people who went to go see him personally and said, is this really like all that it is? Is it really the Nembutsu teaching? And Shinran pretty much told them, hey, if you're looking for something else, right, you probably should go to another school. This comes from an episode in the Tani show, which I don't usually like to, bring up too much, but I think it's an important episode because for us, the teaching that was given to us by the Buddha is a very simple and practical one. Now, just because it's simple and practical doesn't mean that it's not deep, right? So I'm not going to go into the full, spiritual background of the Nembutsu and why it's, the vastness of the 10 kalpas that Bodhisattva Dharmakara passed through in order to complete this vow. If you want to get that, you should definitely come to my study classes, which are the second Wednesdays of every month at 6 p.m. via Zoom. Then we can get into the nitty-gritty stuff. But we are here to, once again, commemorate the Buddha's passing into parinirvana and to recognize that this, of course, is one of the other ultimate truths of Buddhism, that of impermanence. Now, it's easy to, I think, overlook, because it hangs on our wall all the time. But I took down this picture right here, and this is a depiction here of the Buddha's passing into parinirvana. This is a lesson, right? Like when the adult class starts, if you want to see the picture, you have to come closer and not sit in the back, right? But this is a picture of the Buddha's passing into parinirvana, and I will put it back on the wall so you can take a look at it. But you notice that the Buddha's face is serene, and that all of his followers, like you have some monks there, and it's interesting because you also have some Indian royalty who are depicted in this as well. So the Buddha's words and his followers were very vast and spanned all types of people, from royalty to homeless travelers who would walk just to listen to him, because the Buddha's message reached all beings, all people. And this once again goes back into for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, according to Master Shinran, the most important of the sutras is the larger sutra. Now, maybe you don't think about it or you don't know it, but we actually chant a little bit of the larger sutra in almost every single one of our services. So Juseige and Sanbutsuge are just short excerpts from the larger sutra. If we tried to chant the entire larger sutra, that would probably take us about 2 hours. And I don't think any of you have that kind of time, and then you would want to stay afterwards to listen to me talk. So we take certain points from the larger sutra to chant, to still acknowledge the the importance and the importance and the heaviness of the larger sutra. When we think about a teacher, right, our teacher who has had a great impact on us, the things that I think we most remember are their words. The things that we most remember are the lessons that they taught us. I've had many teachers in my lifetime, and thankfully not many of them have yet passed away, so I probably can still reach out and talk to them if I want to. But there's still a separation when a person graduates, right? One of my favorite teachers comes from my high school 10th grade history teacher, world history teacher. His name is William Silvera, and he was by far one of the best school teachers I've ever had in my experience. He would always start our classes with the question of the day, and it would be real things that we could debate, not debate, but discuss, I should say. So, do the ends ever justify the means? Would you rather have freedom from or freedom to, right? Where is the balance? And he would pose these questions to us and cause us to think critically. When we think about the Buddha's lessons as well, many people would ask the Buddha a question, and the Buddha would give an answer. There are very few sutras where the Buddha would just spontaneously speak, though the sutra that we just chanted, the Amida Sutra, is one of those sutras. The Buddha was there to answer questions for us when we were pondering about the many difficulties that we have in life. And depending on your worldview, right, in the previous lives that we've had, or the future lives that we have, or the cycles of samsara, the Buddha was said to be able to see into all realms of existence and from all of his previous lives from the beginningless past. But the thing about the Buddha that really hits home for a lot of us is that the existence of Amida Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light and infinite life. Why is this Buddha so important? If we had the historical Buddha, why do we need this Buddha? It's because the historical Buddha, the teacher himself, would not last forever. The teacher himself, we cannot just sit in front of the Buddha and ask him a question and hear it directly from the Buddha's mouth. We have sutras, thankfully, that give us teaching and guidance from the Buddha's time. But over the years, right, the Buddha's teachings were so vast and big that different schools developed in order to focus on the various teachings. The Buddha was there at one point to guide us, but the physical body of the Buddha is no longer there, nor is the voice. However, the Buddha was also a practical person and realized that because he was not going to be around forever, he needed to give us a teaching that we, even in the millennium years of future that we exist in now, right, we can actually still practice. And that is putting our hands together and saying Namo Amida Butsu. Because the vastness of deep practice, of deep Buddhist practice, lies within saying the Nembutsu. And for many people, what's interesting is that is very, very hard to accept. That is very, very hard to kind of take to heart sometimes. And it's because we're physical beings and we're ritualistic people and we want to do things. We want to sit zazen meditation. We want to be able to have big, nenju like this and be able to count, the breath. We want to physically do things, right? But when we think about the early days of Japan, the average person didn't have that kind of time. They had to be out in the fields, or they actually had to go out and fight war. They had to, wake up early to get their products ready for trading, as merchants did. They didn't have time to devote to all these really hard, stoic, esoteric practices that were prescribed also by the Buddha. So the Buddha gave us a teaching of just place your hands together and say the name of Amida Buddha. Then the teachings and the practice will come to you, as opposed to you having to do all of these hard practices. And this way, it gives us a chance to engage with that Buddhism. It gives us a chance to participate as well as ordinary beings. And this includes myself as Reverend Koyama. I might be up here wearing fancy robes and look kind of regal, perhaps, but I still am an ordinary being who is not enlightened. And it is a wonderful thing for me to still be able to participate in saying Namo Amida Butsu with the rest of you all. That's why we all say Namo Amida Butsu together. I don't have a secret, Nembutsu that I do behind the O19, that hides from all of you. And I don't, like in Shingon Buddhism, some of the monks actually have secret mudras that they do underneath the robes like this, right? So you can't see it, right? Because it's a secret teaching, right? I don't have any of that. Now, yes, I have been trained in more chants and more rituals than you have, but at the end of the day, we all place our hands together and say Namo Amida Butsu with each other, and of course, echoing the words of Bodhisattva Dharmakara, echoing the words of Amida Buddha. How wonderful that we have a practical, easy teaching like this. And yet, for some reason, sometimes it's still hard for us to just accept that, right? Just to be like, no, there has to be something more, or I want something more, I want something more difficult. That is our ego talking. And I'm included in this conversation, included in this, in this world sometimes of our egotistical being. But in this particular Nirvana day, I wanted to really address once again the importance of Namo Amida Butsu and commemorate the teacher who gave us this teaching. So with this in mind, I encourage all of you to, when you come, place your hands together and say Namo Amida Butsu, right? This is a precious, beautiful teaching that the Buddha imparted to us. Thank you all so much for coming to listen to my Nirvana Day talk. And in closing, will you please join me in Gassho while I once again read the words of our founder, Master Shinran Shonin. Thus, these passages give clear testimony that the larger sutra reveals the true teaching. It is indeed the right exposition for which the Tathagata appeared in the world, the wondrous scripture rare and most excellent, the conclusive and ultimate exposition of the one vehicle, the precious words disclosing perfect, instantaneous fulfillment, the sincere words praised by all the Buddhas throughout the 10 quarters, the true teaching in consummate readiness for the beings of this day. Let this be known. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats.